Welcome to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production. Hi, I'm Carol Bissett, a crime writer, and I invite you with my co-presenters, Liz Hedgecock and Mike Jackson, each week to our conversations on all things murderous. Hello everyone, it's Only Murders in My Mind. It's Thursday, it's 5 o'clock, and as usual I have Liz Hedgecock with me.
Greetings, fair maiden.
Thank you. And Mike Jackson,
What
Squire.
you love.
So why did I greet you in such a strange manner?
We're going all like, sophisticated and we're talking about Shakespeare.
Yeah, we're old school.
Shakespeare. But of course, his murders, because, we've got to go with the title of the podcast.
Mm.
None of the pretty things in Shakespeare, and there was an awful lot of murders.
Indeed there were. Where do we begin?
I think probably the most well-known would be Macbeth.
Yeah.
And the murder of King Duncan. I remember doing Macbeth for O-levels. Now, the fact I'm talking about...
so did I.
The fact I'm talking
My
about,
kids did as well.
Yeah, the fact I'm talking about O-levels gives away my age, too.
Yeah, I was a GCSE person,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And I think the thing I can remember most about that is Lady Macbeth. What a devious character she was.
Was she a bunny boiler? Could you not trust her?
Oh, no. And that famous line of hers, "Out damn Spot," where she's trying to get rid of the blood.
Yes. If it were done when 'tis done, 'twere well it were done quickly. So crack on, Macbeth.
And poor old Macbeth, I mean, he didn't really want to kill anybody, did he? I mean, he was...
Come on.
He was a gentle soul.
Was he, heck?
Poor
He
old-
listened to those witches. That was his problem.
Poor old Lady Macbeth, she was devious.
That's the only
Oh, don't go blaming the woman.
the only bit I know about from Macbeth is when shall we three meet again, in thunder, lightning, or in rain, when the hurly-burly's done,
When the battle's lost or won.
Battle something.
Where shall we meet? Upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth.
That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, witchcraft was a crime back then.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Got burnt at the stake or dunked in water.
Mhm.
And if you didn't burn at the stake, you were definitely a witch. And if you survived the drowning, you were definitely a witch. So you were damned, really, weren't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
if you
joke.
drowned, then you weren't a witch. But I mean, it's a bit late by
late
then,
then,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very convenient, wasn't it, for all those people who went witch?
Yeah.
So
Witch
yeah,
hunters.
great way to get rid of people you didn't like.
Yeah. Does it, apart from the play and the witches, are they ever mentioned in any? Because I am not, a great. I don't know a lot about Shakespeare. I did the fluffy ones when I was doing my O levels.
Which are the fluffy ones?
Twelfth Night and.
I loved Twelfth Night's my favourite.
Yeah. And we did the Merchant of Venice as well.
Ah.
So there wasn't much murdering going on. So did he use witchcraft in any of his other plays?
Ooh.
Oh.
I
don't think
I
so.
remember any,
I
but I
said
mean,
it's-
of course, there was magic.
Yes.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Puck and the Fairies.
Much of his stuff, certainly the murder, the crimes, was psychological, wasn't it? There was a lot of playing with the mind. When you go back to Macbeth again, him seeing the woods coming towards him.
Yes,
You
and the
know.
thing where, well, I mean, also in Hamlet, is this a dagger I see
Yes.
before me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. So
true,
there's lots
yeah.
of playing with the mind. There's sort of mind tricks.
Yeah. Et tu, Brute. Was
Mm.
that Shakespeare?
Yeah, Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
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 Well, also, if you think about Othello and what goes on there and how Iago works on Othello to get him to believe things. And, clearly he is very manipulative. But yes, I read an article that said, Shakespeare was, interested in his own way in criminology
Yep.
and why people do what they do and the crimes that they do. And I mean, you can say as a joke, Macbeth didn't mean it. He was just, his wife made him do it and all of that. But I mean, he was invested, and also because there were the witches there who, he believes in what they tell him, and they push him towards it as much as, as much as anything, really.
I mean, there was in all of his plays, certainly the ones we're thinking about, there's a lot of paranoia and betrayal. Everybody seems to be stabbing somebody else in the back, sort of thing. And that's very much of how things would have been in Elizabethan period.
Oh yeah.
You know, the whole political
Trust
setup
no
there
one.
was very much being stabbed in the back. You know,
Yeah.
who do you trust, who don't you trust, and who you trust one day might not be the same person you trust. So his background, so the era that he lived in, gave him the material for these plays.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a bit like the traitors. They're all backstabbing and changing from one day to another. Oh, dear goodness, the human race.
Indeed. But yeah, I was reading something that said, you know, one of the things about Shakespeare is you don't think of him as writing like domestic tragedies.
No.
But there's a belief he may have written like one of the well-known domestic tragedies, Arden of Faversham, for about the same time, which I've actually read, because at university they did a lot of Renaissance stuff. There was a whole thing on Renaissance drama that wasn't Shakespeare, so I read an awful lot of things like The Knight of the Burning Pestle, which, yeah, I know, I actually really enjoyed it, but yeah, and Venice Preserved and things like that.
Bit of light reading at bedtime. Was
Oh,
it?
absolutely. Oh, yeah, some of them were, gory as. But anyway, he may have written or co-written Arden of Faversham, and the saying, if you think about Othello or Hamlet or Macbeth, they're set in families.
Yeah,
they are, aren't they?
You know, it's people falling out with each other, people doing things, you know, people doing stuff you don't approve of, you know, stuff like, you know, your mum gets married again and you don't like your stepdad and all those sorts of, you know, dynamics going on. Or, you know, your wife's pushing you to do something and you're not sure it's a good idea, but, you know.
Stepbrothers wanted to kill stepbrothers and all those sorts of things.
Well, I mean, one of the things with Shakespeare, his villains were sort of almost criminal masterminds. You know, when you think his memorable characters are expert manipulators. And again, going back to Lady Macbeth persuades Macbeth to kill Duncan, you know, and Iago, rather, doesn't kill directly, but persuades Othello to do it. You know, so this devious criminal masterminds. You know, he was very good at sort of developing that character. Those, you know, it's not me, Gov. I didn't do it.
Yeah, and it's over something quite minor because I think Iago doesn't get the promotion he wants.
Yeah.
Othello gives it to someone else, and he's like, "Right, I'm going to get you."
Yeah.
You know, and it's that kind of, you know, petty, jealous behaviour that we can, you know, like, oh, how can you do that over something so trivial? But you know, people do.
Yeah, and I suppose if you saw it today, you would be going like that, wouldn't you? Because they are very, very devious and.
But also, isn't it strange that you know, the people in Shakespeare's plays, these sort of criminal masterminds, in today's stories that we talk about, it's sometimes the criminal masterminds that we have a liking for.
Yeah, it's a love-hate relationship.
I'm thinking of Moriarty, and you know, he's that criminal mastermind that you know, if he wasn't there, there'd be something missing. Not that you always want him to win, but the fact that if he wasn't there,
well, it's the fact that you can admire their deviousness. And their artistry,
yes,
and their expertise in manipulation. I mean, not that you know, approve of it, but it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, because even Hercule Poirot, who was that? Was she a diamond thief?
Oh, Countess Rossakoff.
Yes,
and he had a thing for her.
Had a thing for her, and again, he admired her mind as much as anything else,
and her flamboyance, as well. I think because she was what he wasn't, and she was, you know, loud and extravagant, and he was like a little Belgian man who liked square crumpets.
And they had equal minds, didn't they? I should say she was very, very intelligent, and that's what he liked. I don't think he'd met many people that could equal him for like working things out.
Which shows that even over the age, you know, go back to the Elizabethan era up to today, we still like to have those stories that have got the criminal mastermind in there, don't we? That devious villain. You know, where would James Bond be without all the devious villails in there?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. And as I say,
you don't want them to win, and I think with Shakespeare they don't.
No, you want a proper battle.
They all get their comeuppance, but you still want to, as you say, Liz, you want a proper battle. You want them to have a fighting chance.
When those audiences saw these plays for the first time, they won't have known who's going to win. I mean, it must have been really exciting for them to see these plays. Yeah. You know, it was definitely a spectator sport for people that were a bit bloodthirsty that couldn't go to the hangings.
Yeah. Well, I was reading another article which about violence in Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And it basically says, Elizabethan and Jacobean audiences loved shocking drama.
Yeah.
And they would flock to them. I mean, they liked a comedy, but they would pack the theatres for, treachery, debauchery and murder.
Some things never change.
No, but Shakespeare's, some of his most violent plays were by far the most popular ones. So Titus Andronicus was massive.
Is that very violent?
It's one of these plays where I think I honestly don't know where to begin.
Oh, right, okay.
There is so much that goes on in it. I mean,
I've never read that one, but
I have. I felt ill.
But one part of it when I was doing the research on this, there was an infamous meat pie scene.
Oh, no. Yes.
When Tamora,
yes,
is unknowingly fed her own murdered sons.
Oh no!
But as you say, the crowd would have. The audience.
Oh, they'd have been waiting for it.
Yeah, they'd have been like, throw the pies over here. We don't care.
Yes. Well, I think it's those stepsons who basically rape Titus's daughter, and then so she can't tell anybody, they cut her hands off and cut her tongue out. Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, this is just getting started on the murder scales. Yeah. So, and this was one of the most popular ones. So
this would be an 18 now.
Yeah, it probably would be. But I mean, the Tudors loved it.
Elizabeth, yeah, but it's this. I mean, when you think that the modern equivalent of some really famous stories and films, I mean, Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
Yeah, most disturbing.
Very disturbing.
Oh, that's one that you watch through your fingers, isn't it? Yes.
But loved because of its horror, I suppose. And this is what Shakespeare was. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks of him as a horror writer, but he is.
Yeah.
Isn't he?
Yeah,
when you think
like
of some of those plays, what we've just talked about, they're sort of almost horror stories. Would kept. I mean, the thought of somebody eating
the sons
would keep you awake at night, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Those three witches, the way they're portrayed, scary.
Yeah.
Yes. And they are meant to be proper scary. They're not meant to be funny.
No, they're meant to be.
Yeah, because I mean, it's, as I say, I don't particularly like horror, but I have had a fascination with the tongue's not working. Put the right teeth in, I'll be all right. A fascination with the Elizabethan, with Tudor, really, with Henry VIII and Elizabeth, and all the things that were going on around them, and it was horrific. Wasn't it? Torturing people to confess to things they hadn't done and all this sort of thing.
I mean, you had to be ruthless.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, with the political climate, if you were let somebody off, then they'd be back and, they'd have you.
Elizabeth was really a powerful woman to have reigned for as long as she did.
Had to be. She had to be.
Because
but
so many people
she would have had to have
out.
some very, very powerful men. It would have been mainly men around her that she was able to manipulate. But I've recently watched the Wolf Hall.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, the whole machinations, the whole political intrigue, the whole program is made up of that.
Yeah.
That you can't trust anybody.
No.
Everybody's out to get, to get you.
Yeah.
You may think you're paranoid, and you probably are.
But it doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
No.
Yeah.
It's a bit scary.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, and we've talked about this before with certainly with Sherlock Holmes and certainly with Agatha Christie's Miss Marple and Hercule, that Shakespeare used poison.
Yeah,
he used it a lot, didn't he?
Yeah. But again, I suppose that was a known method of killing people off.
Yes.
Poison.
Yeah.
Back in,
because they had tasters, didn't they? Had food tasters, royalty.
Certainly
and
the
people
royalty
like that.
did. Yes.
Yeah. Poor food taster.
I've never read Hamlet, but I didn't realise King Hamlet is poisoned in the ear.
Yes.
How does that happen?
I think they drip it in while he's
Oh, while he's sleeping.
And it'll be absorbed through the membranes. That's very clever, actually.
But yeah, you do think that's a really cowardly way to do it.
Yes.
So I mean, that's the thing. Different ways of killing people.
Yeah.
You can, sometimes you think, well, okay, that was a fair fight. So, but yeah, something like that, or the way that Iago operates.
Because I know there was, I watched something the other day, and the person that died had poison in the vapor. Is it called a vapor?
Vape.
Vape. And they were puffing on that, and there was poison in it. But it was some sort of poison that just disappeared after about 24 hours. So nobody had the thought to look at things like that, you know.
Well, back in the Tudor times, especially, Henry VIII, Elizabeth, they didn't have the technology to know whether the person had been poisoned or not.
They couldn't prove it, could they?
The chances are that if you were fairly high up, if you were royalty or politically, and you suddenly died, and there wasn't a knife stuck in your back, the chances are that you'd been poisoned.
Yeah.
I would have thought.
Well, possibly.
Oh,
I mean, also, as I think I said in a previous episode, back then, I mean, you could get ill from all sorts of things.
Oh, yes.
You know, I mean, there was all sorts of bacteria and disease and germs and things, and no one really knew what to do about it.
Well, the archers in times gone by, they used to stick the arrows in the soil while they weren't in the quiver. They were stuck in the soil, and they'd pick them out of the soil,
yuck.
knowing that if they struck the person anywhere and they cut the skin, they would get they'd think they'd get like septic wound, but they would go into septic shock and they'd get tetanus because of the soil. So, you know, a lot of people that only had a sort of a minor wound would then die of tetanus or shock, some sort of shock. So yes, they were, there was nothing to protect you against all these things today that we wouldn't think twice about.
I suppose that's that thing. I mean, Shakespeare was writing to public taste. He
was,
people loved this stuff. You've got to please your audience.
So how many murder plays did he write?
Oh,
because I only scratched the surface.
Plays in which there's a murder. I mean, there's probably, if you think about the history plays, there's going to be, you know, plenty of murders in those.
You're certainly be getting into double figures.
Yeah, I mean, I actually found something on the Ranker website where you can vote on everything. That's Ranker, by the way, I said, beginning with a R. So they've got a list here, and number one is Titus Andronicus, as you've said, the thing where Titus kills the Goth boys and then bakes them in a pie for their mother.
Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
Well, I think Tamora is the queen of the Goths.
Ah, right.
So, yes, and it is pretty grim.
So were the Goths all dressed in black with?
I don't think they were that kind.
Lots of eyelashes.
They might have been Visigoths or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be an extra dimension, though. Imagine if they staged it now. You could do that.
You could do that, yeah.
Yeah. Number two is, as I described, poor Lavinia, Titus's daughter, who got raped and then basically, had a really horrible time. Okay, number three is in Macbeth, the slaughter of Macduff's entire household.
Oh, sounds like the Red Wedding from.
But yes, because the witches tell Macbeth that Macduff is going to lead to his downfall. So I mean, the obvious thing to do
is get rid of them all.
Yeah, is kill them.
Game of Thrones.
So so Macduff's wife, Macduff's kids, all get killed, and all the castle servants as well. Nobody is left alive. So, you know, when you say that Macbeth's wife made him do it, she didn't make him do that. That was entirely off his own bat.
No one must survive.
Yes. Number four, Coriolanus. Conspirators tear him to pieces.
Oh,
yes. So, yes, he arranges a peace treaty between the Volscians and Rome, but instead of treating him like a hero, he faces a public execution. So there you go. The angry mob yells out repeatedly, and then he gets cut into pieces.
Was it what was it? Was he just a nobleman?
Well, it was one of the history plays, so I assume this is based on probably Roman history.
Right.
Because that's the thing. You've got like the stuff we know more about, like Henry V, and all those sorts of plays, and Julius Caesar, and then there's the ones we know less about, like Coriolanus, really, or I know less about it anyway. I can't speak for.
No, I don't know.
No, I don't.
No, I don't know anything about Coriolanus either.
Yeah, but number five, Titus Andronicus again. Titus kills his own son.
Oh, keeping it in the family.
Well, someone tries to run off with poor Lavinia, Titus's daughter, and one of Titus's sons blocks the door so that Titus can't run after them, and so Titus just stabs his own son. And then number 6, King Lear. Someone's eyes get gouged out.
Doubt.
I know. So yeah, it's pretty grim times. I mean, this is only the first 6 we've got here. So.
But he lived in grim times.
Yes,
so people would have loved all this because it was part of that whole political intrigue that many of his audience may have heard about. So it was, I think, well, this is really happening. This is great, all this blood and gore, and it probably wasn't far away from some of the things that did actually happen in real life.
Well, wasn't it in Tudor times where if you were a thief, you could have like a finger or even a hand cut off if you were a repeat offender?
Yeah, and then there was the poor princes in the Tower. They died a horrible death. Yeah, won't go into that. Put you off your Sunday. It's Thursday tea, not Sunday tea.
The other thing that, and I knew this before because I'd done some work before about Shakespeare's insults. He was a master of insults.
Oh yes.
And I've got some here that I found. Insults for criminals and villains.
Go on.
So this one's from King Lear. Thou art a boil, a plague sore, an embossed carbuncle.
Blimey.
A brutal way of calling someone a festering disease on society. Perfect for describing a corrupt murderer. Another one, this one's from Henry IV. You starveling, you eel-skin, you dried neat's tongue, you bull's pistol, you stockfish. An elaborate way of calling someone a scrawny, useless criminal. This one's from As You Like It. Thou art like a toad, ugly and venomous.
Indeed.
And then there are some insults for murderers and traitors. This one from Measure for Measure. Thou art a fleshmonger, a fool and a coward. Could be used for a cowardly assassin. I like this one. It's from Titus again. Villain, I have done thy mother.
Oh, blimey.
And imagine this being said in a dark alley before a murder, And this one could apply to a charming or deceitful murder. And this from Hamlet. Oh, villain, villain, smiling, damned villain.
Knife in the back.
And insults for corrupt judges.
Okay.
And lawmen.
He really had like...
he really did. You are a shallow, cowardly hind, and you lie. That was in Henry IV. From Julius Caesar. You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. Could apply to a useless law enforcement. Stopped.
It could.
And this one's from All's Well That Ends Well, which could be used for a hated, corrupt figure. Methinks thou art a general offence, and every man should beat thee.
A couple of mine that I like, and I can't remember which play this is from, but the devil damn thee black, thou cream-faced loon.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's another one where someone gets challenged by, I think, a young lad, and he says, "What, you egg?" and just stabs him. Which is a pretty good comeback.
I'm not messing about there.
No, not at all.
Well, if you haven't got time to read the complete works of Shakespeare,
by next week,
I'm going to recommend a company now. I don't even know if they still exist.
I think I know the one you mean.
Reduce Shakespeare.
Oh,
Company.
yes.
They do the complete works of Shakespeare in about an hour and a half, and it is
slightly abridged.
Yeah, absolutely hilarious.
I
they
saw
also
them when I was a student.
Oh, I've seen them a couple of times, and they also do the entire works of the Bible.
Wow!
And I remember when I watched the entire works of the Bible, one of the cast kept, because there's only about 4 of them. One of the cast kept coming out and going, "The Ark," and the others would go, not yet, go away. And then when he finally came out, they were going, "Go on, say it." They were going, he went, "The Ark," and we haven't got time for it now. Honestly, if they're ever come to a theatre near you, go and see them. They are absolutely hilarious. So, and another a lone actor I saw once, he used to do the Star Wars trilogy, didn't he? And we went to a small theatre in London, and John got the hiccups because he was laughing so much and hiccuped all the way through. However, when we came out, he could say it word for word, the whole play.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anything we missed from him hiccuping, he could repeat to us. But yeah. So that was quite.
Are you harrowed now?
I didn't realise that it was that bad. I've got to say. I knew Shakespeare had very dark plays, but because I haven't researched or gone into Shakespeare plays, because I've not needed to, as I say, I did the light fluffy ones.
I think the thing is, nowadays you see a lot more of the comedies
Yes.
and the tragedies that aren't Titus Andronicus.
Yeah. The play is done a lot, isn't it? Hamlet.
Oh yeah,
that comes. I mean, I think for a lot of actors, that is the pinnacle of their career if they can play Hamlet.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, because it's quite a long play, I think the various violent things are diluted a bit.
Yes,
because you've got all the soliloquies and whatnot.
Yeah,
but,
and you do wonder, don't you, how many crime writers, over the years have taken plots from Shakespeare.
Or certainly taken titles, I think.
And taken bits from Shakespeare and elaborated on them.
Yeah. It's, as we were saying, apart from Shakespeare, Agatha Christie was the best-selling author of all time, but Shakespeare still. It's the Bible, Shakespeare, then Agatha Christie. It's something like that. Yeah. But there's a lot of Bibles in hotels all over the world, aren't there?
Those damn Gideons.
Oh, right. Have we got anything further to expand on this?
I think we've talked enough about it.
I think I've got a bit of a headache. I think I need to go and lie down in a dark room.
I think we just need to mention our blog, which we've not mentioned for a couple of weeks, I don't think. So
indeed.
If you haven't visited our blog, it's at onlymurdersinmymind.wordpress.com. And I think if you went into the section description in this podcast on YouTube, there'd be a link to the blog there as well.
Marvelous.
So please come and have a look and
subscribe. Like.
We do have a weekly writing prompt on the blog, so maybe you'd like to do look at the next weekly writing blog and do a Shakespearean murder,
or a sonnet,
or murders,
As long as it involves a meat pie, you'll be all right.
Yuck. And on that note,
on that note, for anybody having meat pies for tea tonight, sorry.
Just check where they came from.
Check.
Before you eat the meat pie, count the kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a good way to go. So until this time next week. I am depressed now.
Sorry, Carol.
We'll all say goodbye.
We'll never lie down, Carol.
Bye.
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 You have been listening to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production, produced by John Bissett. The music in Peril was composed and recorded by OM Studio Strings.